for listening to another episode of the Late Night with Chefs podcast. I am your host, Doug. Truffle Boy is not going to be able to join us today. Unfortunately, he is working out of Ravinia on that grind. But I have an amazing pleasure to introduce Chef Franco. Chef, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having me here, Doug.
Yeah, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I know you have a crazy schedule ahead of you. You have done some amazing things in your culinary journey, and I actually had the pleasure to work with you for a little bit. And so I know how type A personality you are, and I just really appreciate you uh, coming and sharing some of that culinary knowledge and kind of sharing your experience with us here on the show.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you. So, Chef, we're gonna kind of get right into it. Walk me through your culinary journey. Where did your kind of passion for the kitchen start?
So, I'm Italian American from New York, so I've always been around food, from family gatherings and just every night meals, all things like that. It really stemmed from just when I was younger, finding a love and appreciation for food through what we ate every day, just great Italian food. And that sort of grew. Again, being from New York, we would eat out at a lot of fantastic restaurants in New York City when I was younger, and I really just started to learn to appreciate good, delicious food and good service and good ambiance that all went along with it. And that really founded my love for food and cooking. So from there, um, I started my first business, which was making gelato after doing a cooking camp with a friend of mine in middle school. And that sort of all led to me being on Chopped and my first restaurant job, and then into culinary school, working at some great New York City restaurants. Like you mentioned, we worked at Per Se together. I worked at Nomad and iFiori, um, and now I'm out here in Napa, California, doing the Boku store.
Quite a journey, quite a journey. So, that's kind of interesting. You had that young entrepreneurial spirit, mixed with the love for cooking and kind of started a gelato business. What were some of your top selling flavors?
So our number one signature flavor was honey almond chocolate chunk, which is
Oof,
still a favorite to this day.
nice, nice. That's hopefully going to be on a menu someday. We'll see
Oh, it
that.
will be. You can count on that.
So what kind of, you mentioned that you're out there in Napa doing the Bocuse. You guys just had some major success down in Chile. What made you decide that you wanted to be a part of Bocuse? When did you first hear about it?
So I first heard about it, when Chef Rosendale was competing, which was 2013. So I watched that competition. Being an aspiring chef, it was something that really appealed to me because there was this mystery and intrigue around the whole thing. And being so young, I had no idea how they made food that looked like that was that perfect. And especially sitting on a platter that grand, and the spectators and everything, it was just so magical. So from there, I really continued to follow the competition and see, a little bit of the history, but really where it was progressing to. And I always loved it and always wanted to be a part of it, and had dreamed that sort of one day I would um, be the candidate for the United States sometime in the future. But this opportunity came along through the CIA, and I'm so grateful to be part of the team. Mentor, who is the organization that sponsors Team USA, is phenomenal, full of great people and amazing chefs that just really go above and beyond to support us. So it's really an honor to be part of the organization.
Yeah, I know as one of those spectators, kind of, before I had come to New York, I hadn't really heard too much of Bocuse d'Or. It's definitely not talked about too much down in Florida, where I spent a majority of my early career. And watching the level at which you guys perform, I was live streaming it during family meal at Per Se, watching you guys,
I appreciate that.
do your thing, and just perfectly plating everything and then having to like carry these huge, platters to the judging table. It's a feat just to get it to the platter, and then another feat in and of itself for the logistics and the transport of the
We're so
masterpieces.
lucky. We have a great team. We have a great coach. The candidate this year, Chef Hayashi, is phenomenal, and everyone at that competition was really great. You know, the other countries that we competed with, the jury members, the kitchen jury, and just everyone who was there to support us, and support all of the teams. It was really phenomenal.
Um, did you kind of have any idea of, okay, if I get in the Bocuse d'Or, it's going to mean this for my future, or was it more about, just getting to the Bocuse d'Or and kind of going with the flow from there?
I mean, you know, it's always been a dream of mine. So, you know, I don't necessarily see this as sort of a step along the road. I see it as something that, you know, I've always wanted to do, and I'm just sort of satisfying that craving for lack of a better word. Um, you know, I definitely see how this opens doors, and being connected with so many amazing chefs, both here in the United States through Mentor, but also internationally because of the acclaim that this competition has in most other countries. You know, I can certainly see how that opens doors and creates opportunity. But you know, I'm not really looking too much towards what's happening after. I'm really just focused on Leon and what's next.
I love that. I think that's incredibly important, especially in this industry. I think we can get caught up in, oh, the future, 5 years from now, and forget to live in the moment.
Definitely. And this
I love
is, you
that.
know, since I've wanted to do this for so long, living in the moment is so crucial, you know, and
Mm.
I really do find myself waking up almost every day and just sort of being starstruck that I'm a part of this team and able to work with people that's phenomenal every day.
Most definitely. Um, Speaking of being a part of that team, what does it look like, for someone who's interested in, working on the Bocuse d'Or, becoming part of that? What's the interview process like?
So typically there's a national selection that's held. So, you know, the best chefs from across the country will submit some paperwork and ideas and recipes and things for a series of culinary tests that they'll have to do. And then Mentor, again, who's the organization that sponsors Team USA, they will go through all of that paperwork and read about the chefs and speak with all of them and actually go out and visit all of them and pick several candidates who are the best suited out of that group to come and compete together in a sort of miniature Bocuse d'Or format.
Mm.
Um, and last time that was held here in Napa at the CIA at Copia. And there will be another national selection coming up soon. And it will be graded sort of on that same format as the Bocuse d'Or. So a panel of tasting jury members will taste everything and rate, you know, based on flavor and different aspects, appearance, and all things like that.
Right, right.
And the best candidate will be chosen. So that candidate has a commis, which is the role that I'm in right now. And that has a very strict age range on it. So I can't be older than 22 at the time of the competition, which is what a major challenge is in finding people who are experienced enough to be a part of the competition and also young enough to fit into that age range.
Mm. I can imagine, and I'm thinking a lot about the other, 20 and 21-year-old cooks that I've worked with in my past, and having to perform at that level, and also being that passionate about it. A lot of times we don't find that passion until later on in life, or some people look at, the industry as kind of just like a job, but that's very much not that sort of atmosphere. It's very career driven, very focused. So, what an honor to just be able to be part of that, like you said.
Absolutely. And I mean, I was really fortunate. So Chef Hayashi was chosen to be the American candidate in 2021. But since COVID happened and all of that, we actually withdrew. And sadly, because of that, his previous komi aged out of the competition. He wasn't able to compete because he got too old, which is just, I mean, that's such a heartbreaking point.
Yeah, too old at 23.
Exactly, and that really says something.
Yes.
But I was fortunate enough through going to CIA and meeting Dr. Ryan, who's the president there, and Mark Erickson, who's the provost, to be connected with Mentor to interview for this position. So I wasn't a part of that whole national selection process, but I still got to spend some time out here working with Chefs Hayashi and Saladiki and learning about the competition and all things like that before I was chosen for the role.
And talking about being out there, in Napa, I have a very base understanding just based off our conversations before you left. But what is it like being out there? What is like a typical day as a commis for the Bocuse d'Or?
Sure. So, I mean, Napa is a beautiful place. Anyone who tells you different is lying. The weather is great. The scenery is just stunning, and it's not New York for sure. And they both have their places, but
Right.
Napa is really, really beautiful. So we have a training kitchen here at CIA at Copia, and we start every day at 7 a.m. and we'll work sort of until we complete the projects that we see fit for the day, and we have these sort of general goals of what we want to achieve every few days or every week, every month, whatnot. So it's Chef Hayashi, myself, our coach, and then we have 2 team assistants who are great and help us out here in the kitchen. And we'll all sort of work on projects development, which is where we are right now for our platter and plate in Lyon. So every day, we'll start at 7 a.m. We take a nice family meal break, and then we'll come back. We'll work for a couple more hours and spend quite a bit of time sort of brainstorming and game planning for what needs to happen over the next few days.
And is it kind of like you're more spending a day like perfecting a component of a dish than maybe necessarily an entire dish in a day?
And it's we'll spend a week perfecting one aspect of one bite of food. It's really unlike any other experience, unlike anything in a restaurant, where in a restaurant it's sort of the level of good enough is not perfection. It's just if it tastes, if it looks nice, and if it works as sort of a component of the overall menu or tasting menu or dish. Here,
Right.
it's very much about how can we make this taste as beautiful and clean and complex and perfect as possible in a true sense of the word. We'll spend months just developing one bite of food so that it is as impactful as possible. And, as a young cook, that really has helped to shape the way that I perceive cooking, the way that I know that I'll approach it going forward. It's very different from any experience I've had before.
Definitely, and I love that kind of comparison to a restaurant versus the style of cooking, because in a restaurant the food is let's say 33% of the entire experience. You have service, and you have what does the dining room look like, what music is playing, what's the mood. But this is strictly focused, like you said, on the perfection of that bite and the technical abilities of the chef.
Exactly.
It sounds like what an opportunity to be able to really deep dive into cooking, because in a standard operation you definitely are not able to take this kind of time to make something. All this kind of R&D would be done either outside the kitchen or in a separate location by a big corporate chef. So
Yeah, I
amazing.
think, I would compare a restaurant to sort of broad exposure to many techniques for a short period of time, where this is a very narrow exposure to a defined set of techniques. But, coming out of this, I think everyone on our team and everyone who's been a part of this competition in one way or another is really comfortable with what we do. And we have a really deep understanding of it, which is, I think it's sort of the inverse of what you would find in a restaurant.
Well, when we come back from our break, we are going to talk a little bit about competition day and what that was like for you. But we are going to cut for a quick commercial break and we will be right back. Thank you guys for listening, and we will talk to you shortly. All right, and we are back with Chef Franco out of Napa. Chef, I just want to take some time and thank you again for spending your morning with us. I know it has been quite busy, but you have been giving us some really amazing details of your life, but also specifically of what the Big Kustuar means to you and kind of how it's shaping you as a young chef.
So glad to be here.
Before we left, we were talking a little bit about what it's like, the amount of training that you're going through. Can you give us a little bit of insight to that big day, competition day? Um, you spent months, perfecting these abilities, but at the end of the day, if you don't perform on go time, it's all for nothing, more or less.
Exactly.
So how do you remain in that right headspace with so much pressure and so much, time invested into this one day?
I mean, it's all about practice. So we spent, I would say, the better part of 2.5 months practicing just the movements that we'd be doing in the competition. So we have our food all set, we have our platter all set, we have everything that we're doing, our equipment, layout, everything here in the kitchen, all set. So it's exactly what we'd be competing with in Santiago. And going into that competition, I mean, it's challenging. We're in a different country, in a different time zone, opposite weather from what we have in the United States, and people are speaking a different language. So it's certainly a huge challenge to be able to come into a venue, into an event that is unlike anything I've ever felt before, with an extreme amount of excitement and nervousness all happening at the same time. But I really feel that the moment that we set all of our equipment up and got onto that stage, we had our little powwow before we started. It's not so much about, I'm here in this moment right now, but very much about, I've done this 1,000 times before. I know exactly what I need to do. I know exactly how I'm going to do it. I just need to focus on the move that I'm doing because, it's truly an electric experience. People are cheering and there's music playing. And we were right near one of the big subwoofers in the stadium, and they play this heartbeat sound the whole time as people are putting their plates and platters together, and you could feel it in your body. It was unreal. And the moment you take your focus off what you're doing, whether it's picking up a tuile or putting a garnish on something, and focus on that heartbeat, it all falls apart.
Mm.
It's really just very much about focusing on what you're doing in that moment and the task that's right next to that, and anything else is just a distraction.
I can kind of get a sense as you're saying that, increasing that level of anxiety, the Jeopardy song, the do.
Yeah, but it's 10 times worse, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It is, and they're playing the same song over and over. And there's people there that are cheering and making noise with whatever it is, drums or air horns and
Mm.
everything, and just screaming at the top of their lungs. And there's an MC that's on these crazy loudspeakers talking in Spanish super fast and in French and in English, and camera crews that are trying to interview our coach who is standing outside of the competition box. And through all of that, I can't say, the only thing that I really remember is that heartbeat sound. And that's because they were also playing it just right at the end as we were finishing setting everything up. I was saying, to my family the other day, I can't remember the song that they were playing.
Mm.
And I know if I heard it, I would be like, oh, that's it.
Right,
But
right.
the life of me, I can't remember what song they were playing. So it's just, you tune everything else out, and it's just focusing on what we're doing in the moment.
Did we kind of talked a little bit about how you have these different countries and these different cultures, and you guys are all there competing on game day. Did you have a chance to interact with any of the other teams, and what was some of their backgrounds or their experience?
So, I mean, the other teams are everyone that competes in this competition is a phenomenal technician, a phenomenal chef, someone that really cares and loves what they do. Because going into this, you really have to care more about the general aura around cooking than your own personality or ego or anything. I mean, you are essentially cooking for this panel of extraordinary chefs that will rip your dish apart no matter what. Whether you're the person that wins or not, no one gets a perfect score.
Mm.
So everyone that was at that competition is, I admire and I respect beyond anything. I got to speak with a lot of them. I got to interact with a couple of the commies from across the countries and a couple of the candidates, and everyone is very genuine and cordial and nice. And like I said, I truly do respect everyone that was there for taking the energy and the time and the love that I know that they put in to be a part of that competition, and to really try and represent and elevate the experience that all of the American countries have at this competition.
Kind of, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but you guys won the Americas, you got the gold. I think taking time to celebrate and recognize that is, extraordinarily powerful. But everybody wants to know the road to Leon. I see the hashtag everywhere.
Mhm.
Are you guys changing up your game plan at all? Are you kind of staying the course?
We're definitely staying the course. Our game plan is really just focus on developing our food, making food that tastes great first, finding a way to make it look pretty, and just focusing on the task at hand, which is making good food that looks pretty, that we'll be able to execute in the 5.5 hours that we have, and making food that's impactful. And we have a lot of strategies that I can't really get into.
Of course,
But
I understand.
we really feel that what we brought to Santiago was it worked out for the best, and we have a lot of techniques and tools and skills that we think will really help us in Lyon. So we're not changing too much up. We're hunkering down even more and really trying to focus on, like I said, making delicious food that looks pretty.
I love that. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right?
Exactly. In a restaurant and here.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Chef, before we leave, I would just love to get a little, piece of this drive that you have. You're obviously very goal driven. You have things that you want to accomplish. And for other young chefs and, restaurateurs and culinarians out there, I'm sure they share a lot of those similar dreams. And, everybody has a goal or something they're trying to accomplish. How do you personally stay the course, and maybe a piece of advice for someone out there doing the same?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that anyone who's in this industry has to love food. And for me, a lot of that stems from education. And I truly do believe that having a good basis of education is great. And, I say education in a really loose sense of the word. I don't think that that necessarily means culinary school or college at all even. But, that worked for me. I went to culinary school. I went to graduate school. And I find a lot of value in higher education and sort of the format that school will give you. So I advocate for that for everyone. You don't need to be in finance or business or the medical field to have a college degree and even have a graduate degree. But I would advocate for everyone in this industry to try and learn as much as you can through reading, through listening to podcasts, even like this, where you learn
There you go. Sick
from
plug.
people like Jeremiah Tower and some of the other phenomenal chefs that you had on here. But, picking up a cookbook, whether it's Claire Smith's new cookbook, which is one of my favorites, or whether it's Bocuse's cookbook or Escoffier's cookbook, and learn something different that you might be able to, take a spin on, or might give some basis for a technique that you're learning at work or at school or wherever. I think that education is so important, and it really provides a baseline for people to continue to push forward and really achieve their dreams. That's certainly how I've been able to do it. And by having such a great support network, my friends and my family and people that I've worked with like you that have been able to give me a platform like this to share my story, being able to be surrounded by people like that is really what's made this journey great to be a part of and pleasurable to be a part of, because I know a lot of people, find challenges and roadblocks and things along the path of success. And I've had a lot of really great success surrounded by great people who have supported me so far. And I look forward to what's next, and I hope that I can share some advice to some young culinarians here who will be able to go out and learn themselves or get formal education that will continue to provide them with benefits down the road.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I also went to culinary school. It was a local technical school, but just having the hunger for the education, continuing to read is so crucial. And I think that's what really kind of changed my mindset as well. Great piece of advice there, Chef. Before we wrap up, if anybody wants to continue watching you on your journey, see what's happening, with the hashtag Road to Leon and the Bocuse d'Or, where can they find you? Where can they reach out to you?
So you can always drop me a follow on Instagram. I'm at thecookfranco, and I'm sure that you'll share that with any of the platforms that I put that on. But follow Mentor BKB. You can search them up on Google or go on Instagram or Facebook or anything and follow our journey there.
Awesome. Well, everybody, I just want to thank you guys so much for spending time with me and Chef Franco. As always, thank you guys for listening and appreciating your support in this podcast journey. And Chef, we are all going to be cheering for you and watching from the sidelines. And good luck on this next trip of your journey.
Appreciate it, Doug. It was really great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Stay safe.